Okay, continuing, second paragraph is base. So after having addressed the Bali Asokim, those out in the business world, and the hechlech, the daven, Shabbos, Yankov, Barichus, and also that means it has to be also the avoid even during the week. Nisha Tarach Berev, Shabbos, Yechol, Shabbos. Now he addresses the Yeshua Ayholim, those whose worlds are the worlds of Torah, teachers, so on. Abonim. So obviously for those who are dwellers of the tents, as it were, referring to the oil of Shem Ve'ever, primarily, there's not even place to make such a mistake that he's not shaykh to Arichas Atfila, Avedis Atfila. Behind the meaning, it's only the business person, he might make the mistake, he can't daven so much, like the Yeshiv oil. I mean, I feel that's some gufa, but in that world, even though a person loses objectivity when it comes to himself, but such a mistake he can't make. Can't make such a toss. And if there's such a thing, that there's a person whose world is the world of Torah and Tefillah, and he's not Meirich, he doesn't lengthen, daven at length, so we know that he's beyond the pale. Because in the Torah we know, welcome the Torah Kazu, there's no justification at all for this. He doesn't have to be Meirich and Tefillah, there's no place for such a mistake. And the fact, what about those that think that since time already went, that then they used to want that, but not anymore. They're not Meirich and Tefillah, and no one's protesting. Never could mean himself. I'm not saying anything. So they say, therefore, as Yirayish, Maskim Alanagosam, so they bring us as a proof that their conduct is being agreed to. Says the Rebbe, that's a big mistake. It's already clarified from then by the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe in Torah, there's no room for such a mistake. And therefore, there is an inyan shebein the bein hazokin. So in other words, don't look to me if you want to worm out of this. It's between you and the Alter Rebbe.
The Rebbe's perspective, where does the Shliach fall in? Somewhere in between, right?
Yeah. The Shliach Mamish has a good Yitzhahar, the Tainus. Guests and so on, and he has got to be.
That I understand, but
what?
That I understand, but I'm curious what the Rebbe would included.
They're not excluded.
I said if it's included.
if anything is the Yeshiv oil, okay, he's got to find time. Look. Got to find time. When I first went on Shlichus in the beginning, I used to daven. I didn't daven with the minyan. They thought I did. And I would stay on, not every week. When there's guests, it's not so simple. But there's definitely no way out here. And if he has reasons to justify his behavior, let him debate it with the Alter Rebbe. And if he has a good answer, it's only an excuse. And then the Rebbe adds, no, finish. He's going to find out with the Alter Rebbe, but the Alter Rebbe accepts it as a teretz. Or the Alter Rebbe is going to reject it. Then the Rebbe hastens to add, if he's such a person, such a talent that he could debate could debate and debate with the Alter Rebbe, instead of using your talent of debate and excuses for not davening, use your seichel. You're such a good cop. Mutav l'natzal zeisel al teisvis havonis b'chsidus. Use your genius to understand b'chsidus better, and not your genius to argue with the Alter Rebbe and justify your behavior. If you have such a talent already, you're going to use it for this. This is fairly typical of the Rebbe's. Whatever.
Like I mentioned yesterday, I see that from here I realize this is the exact same thing that they printed it over there.
What?
They printed this, like I mentioned yesterday or so, that they printed this in the back of Chassidus Mav'eres on the Mayim Rabim. The Sikha. Yeah, I see it from this from the brackets. It's the exact one.
Yeah. So the Rebbe is demolished every tainer. So much so that even if you're able to tainer, don't use it for this. So therefore, there has to be harichas has bizman. I mean, this is so famous. As a bocher, as a child, I heard about this for Brengen. A child, a teenager, yeshiva, or a 15. We'll see in a minute. And those who think that they can concentrate on davening in a shorter amount of time. Don't need the lengthy time. Toiv mad bekavana. They're quoting better a little with kavana than a lot without kavana. Eina emes kain. It's not so. El kashem mamaitim bisman. If you put in less time, as echasik am bekavana, there's less kavana. Ubeemes esh soirich bisbonus hadresh zerich zman. And the emes is that there's a need for his bonus that takes time. Varaye from the Alter Rebbe in the Geras HaKodesh, we just learned in Tanya, shesh lahayich betfila at sho machtz the pachas. Talking about a weekday. A person should daven an hour and a half. Later the Rebbe said an hour for our generation, but now he's quoting you the hour and a half. And if a person could achieve the end of davening in less time, he wouldn't have demanded, especially with such intensity and such emphasis. There has to be an hour and a half. So, no way out. And furthermore about the Yeshua Yeholim, there's another. If you don't ma'idich in davening, you're a bad example. And others learn from you out of 15. The Rebbe said this. They used to say, it's kedai even to sleep half an hour under the talis. Put your talis over your head. Put head on the. You've heard this. All right. The viewer thinks he's thinking about a tiferet inyan. He's put the deep subject. He's put his head down on the table. Or b'chlal ze yaseh kain gambo kain, and the viewer will also do so. Kloima, meaning to say gam kasher chaser etzlai. Even if he's missing, he can't. He can't, more he won't. At least affect another. Obviously, it's not the first way to go. At least has to be as the expression of Chassidim, may the words affect me and the listener, meaning to say that you should be doing it as an example, not as in appearance only. Manachas built him Mugad. This didn't get into the Mugad Sikha in the Chelek, but that's the Rebbe said then by the Fabrengen. What's interesting is that Tovshin Chafei was a Verbringen every Shabbos. And that was demanding Arichas Atfila, to daven until the Verbringen, basically. Verbringen is 1:30. I'm sure it was 1:30. I'm assuming it was 1:30 in those days. He also demanded that year that everybody has to finish the Chassidish Parsha. Go to Torah or Torah. I think you had to write in. If you didn't do it, it was a whole not done.
There were times, there was a Shabbos Parshas Tazria, the Rebbe said, it was particularly after they printed the Likutei Torah, Shabbos Parshas Tazria, the Rebbe says, those that finished the Chassidish Parsha should say L'chaim. Finished. Mitzoira, the Rebbe says, Bibal sa kurze Parsha, Mistam haben alle sicher geendigt the Chassidish Parsha, sollen alle sagen L'chaim.
Yeah, Leibel Shapiro, I remember, was telling us about all this, yeah. A Bacher then, he was a Bacher then. Yeah. Yeah, no, so listen, we're learning it now, we're going to do something. So continuing now, what, if you don't, Yeshiv Oil doesn't, so what example is he setting? Of a Kal v'chaymer. And the Kal v'chaymer is, Ima Yeshiv Oil, sheyesh le'pnai. So the guy's going to make a Kal v'chaymer. Not only is he going to learn from him, he's going to learn from him, going to take even away, he's going to take even a worse example than the Yeshiv Oil himself, because he's going to say, the viewer is going to say that if he has time, mispal v'meshes man b'suim, when he davens X amount of time, pnai, so I don't have time because I'm a business person. He'll daven even less than you who doesn't daven barichas. Never mind your bad example that it'll justify another chassid not davening barichas. The other chassid will say, I'm even less than him because he's got time and doesn't. It's not that important, whatever the cheshbon is. So, me even less. Yesh l'hoisif digs deeper now. Yesh l'hoisif bebi dik haloshem bale hasokim v'yosh v'olim. Why does the Alter Rebbe speak about the plural? The business people, the yesh v'holim, l'sharam v'lei balesik v'yeshav l'shiyach. Talk about the obligation to daven b'avodah, not like the toss of a balesik. A balesik makes a toss. Why does he speak in the plural? Unbelievable answer. It's not Alter Rebbe's words himself. Since that the Tzemach Tzedek chose these Mayim out of thousands and were published in Torah and Likutei Torah. It's certainly, it's precise. And especially as the Tzemach Tzedek himself writes, there were many Maimon that Alter Rebbe actually looked at and edited. So they're meduyik. So Meili speaks about the business people in plural. Okay. But Al Shail is stronger when he speaks about the Yeshiv early in the plural, Lashon Rabim, Al Pichsidis. We shouldn't use plural when speaking about a Yeshiv early. Why not? The Bishlam Mashakasav Bale Asakim. When it comes to business people, Lashon Rabim uses the plural as the fish Asakim Minyanim Eila. They're out there in the world, which is a world of plurality. Reshus Rabim, it's the domain of the many, to the peaks of separation. He says in Tanya, quoting from the Zohar. No achtus there, division. But the dweller of the tent, it's referring to the oil of Torah, Shem Be'eva primarily. That's the word, the language first appears. It's Torah is one, initial achtus. So why speak about such the Yeshiv oil and invoke the plural? The same point is conveyed, and it would be more appropriate to use the singular. Oh, so he was a dweller of tents, also the plural. Pirish Rashi, Oli shel Shem v'Oli shel Ever. There seem to be two yeshivas. On the yeshiva we say Shem ve'ever. Like there were two. That's sort of a little bit. In the 10th of Shem and his grandson Ever. Shemaram is Gam al Teresh Biksav Teresh Balpeh. Why the two? Because the Maram is on Teresh Biksav and Teresh Balpeh. Kvish Mevayr Atzimach Tzedek Ben HaTeresh. Oli Shal Shem Kel Teresh Biksav. The 10th of Shem is a remez on the Ikel Limod Des Teresh Biksav. Names. Shame. The Chol HaTeresh, as the Medrash says, Kol HaTeresh Shmoyser Shaklish Baruch. The whole Torah is Hashem's names. Famous Medrash. I don't know why they give a source. V'oli shel Ever, whereas Ever, which means to transmit, Keil Teresh Bapeh Maloshen Ever Aleinu. That the by the Shunamis over there, he passes by us. He comes by and preparing from a place. So Ever means to transmit, and that's what Teresh Balpeh. Sham Shachas V'Gili Teresh B'Ksav, as we learned in the previous Mayim, 2 Mayim ago. The Teresh Balpeh transmits and reveals Teresh B'Ksav. So now we'll understand why the Alter Rebbe says the diuk using the plural. Milosh HaTorah b'negel tos habali asokim shebedaitom shein yechelim lispal kol kach k'moi hayoshvei ohalim. So he uses the plural. He speaks about the dwellers of tents immediately. He's singing with the same language. And he uses in the same breath as it were, the same sentence, the same language. It's understood. He has the intent the same intent with respect to both of them. Just like the business person is obviously talking to someone, not only someone who has many businesses. It's obvious that he's referring to, even though he could have, but he only has one business, yeah? So likewise, it's unbelievable the way that explains this. The dweller of tents, we said before, that Rebbe negates the possibility of even making a mistake in the first place. So why use the plural? For the same reason he used the plural for the business person. He doesn't just mean the business person who has more than one business, even if he has one business. Likewise, how does this apply to the Yeshiv Leil? So it's not only the Yeshiv Leil that sits in both worlds. Teresh B'Ksav, Teresh Balpeh. So he's like a shleimus. He's like a Yeshiva that has excels in Chumash and in Teresh Balpeh. He's only dwelling in one tent, like the person has one business. He's learning only part of he only learns in one area, but Teresh Balpeh levad, the Teresh B'Ksav levad. His main emphasis is Teresh Balpeh or Tanakh, Teresh B'Ksav. So such a person might say, well, he's not really a Yeshiva. Whatever his excuse is going to be. I'm only learning in one area, I still got to learn the other area, I got to delve into that. So the Alter Rebbe says, you too, my friend, even such a Yeshiv like the Yeshiv, the Balei Asokim, there's no room, no justification for such a mistake. More arichas, b'hinei. B'hinei. What's the between Teresh B'Ksav and Teresh B'Peh? Teresh B'Ksav, Ikara Oisius. The main thing of Teresh B'Ksav is the letters. L'chein, I feel like Morris Liyod Mike Omar. Even that Morris doesn't understand what's being said, being read. Mevarah B'Richas HaTorah B'Al Yosef L'Kris Teresh B'Ksav makes a brach when it's called after the Torah. For the Teresh B'Peh, Ikara V'Navasaga, the Ikara Teresh B'Peh is understanding. It's not the Oisius. Adarab. Interesting thing coming, friends. What's the simon? You understand the subject matter well. You're not saying the oisius of the Rav, not the oisius of the Maimir, but your words. Which means to say, we're getting an important lesson in how to learn. So the Chliya Shemidas Oisias Gam B'Terish V'Pet. It goes without saying, you got to be very careful about the Oisias and B'Chlal, and he's saying, he's balancing this now. On the one hand, yes, attention to the words and the diyukim. U'B'Chlal Chayv Adam Leime B'Lashon Rabbi. And the Gemara says in Brachas, a person should always quote and using the language of his Rebbe. Why? In those words is in Yoni, which you haven't grasped or unpacked yet, and therefore remain faithful to it. Don't replace those words. And if he then will replace the teacher's words with his own style, he's not going to be able to mine this idea for the depth that it still contains. That's on the one hand. But that which he did already understand, that level, that part, has to say in his words, remaining still faithful and remembering and not departing from the Isis Harav, but then still expressing it in your words. So therefore, now he's going in further detail. So he just finished saying that what the ikar of what Teresh Biksav, contrasting it to his Isis, the ikar Teresh Biksav is Havana Vasoga. So now we'll explain the hero, the lesson from the words of the Alter Rebbe, Yesh v'Yeholim Basher Rabim. Moiridik. Din yeshem achishim shebechdei lispalo barichos. Gewalt. There are those that think in order to be holding by the Dan Gedav Barichos, Yesh Seirich Beriba Mamorim Davke, has to know a lot of Mamorim. Love and Oisim Betuv, and understand them well, that be Iyun, delving and learning deeply. Aval, however, Kashem becomes from the Migras, if for whatever reasons his Chassidus learning is only Limbigadus, which means literally he's just learning the words, Goitus, covering ground, superficial, relatively speaking. Without deep understanding. That's number one. And moreover, didn't even learn a lot of Maimorim. And then which he learns is only an external understanding. So you can think, what's the shaykhis with Avodas HaTefillah? As a shaykh Avodas HaTefillah. Here comes the instruction, Shafila Misha Yeshev Ba'il, the Teresh Biksav Bilvad. All he's got is the letters. He's not a big, doesn't understand deeply and didn't learn a lot. He's learning in a way of reading. It's almost like he's just saying the words. You understand the translation. He gets a general understanding. Nonetheless, Nigam etzlam bepshitus gemura. By such chassidim also has to be absolutely given. Ba'ifan shein malkim litais in such a way that there's no room for error, for mistake, for thinking otherwise. And that is shechedim lasik b'Avodas HaTefillah. He can be involved in Avodas HaTefillah k'me'elu sh'limud achsidah shalem b'ifan Teresh B'Alpeh, just like those who their learning is like Teresh B'Alpeh, being about Mokkeh, being maskilim and understand with great depth. Concluding, V'gam zeh yeshiv ba'oil Teresh B'Alpeh. And obviously this chassid that he is a deep, he's the Teresh B'Alpeh chassid in Limud Achsidus. She actually have one amuka b'Torah, understands Torah deeply. Muchrich l'Avodas HaTefillah. He for sure needs to daven about another thing. Mayim Razal, kolei me'inli el Torah. If a person says he only has Torah but not Avodah, then even Torah doesn't have. Kim Tefillah Gamken, he has to have, as he explains in Kuntat Yitzchayim, it's hechlech to be Avodas HaTefillah. It's like adding that for the one who has the deep seichel and avanda, it's even more critical that he has the inner Tefillah. Because the guy who learns Chassidus and Bigadus, his learning is almost like a davening anyway. So, but the one who's takas avanda vasogi, mamish has to have the inner of Tefillah. So the Rebbe has no wiggle room here whatsoever. What I made a dikadia, Yeshiv Yeholim, that is about Pertesh, B'Ksaf Hashem V'Ever. Had a good word from my son, Lisa David, from h'tשכ Kislev, Fabrengen. So one of the people speaking, his name is Horowitz, and of course, he's a German, he teaches Noli Torah. So he said, I think you learned the Sikha with Levi, the two reasons why Chassidus is revealed, Dafka B'Derisenu Eila in our generation. So one is as the antidote, the medicine, the vaccine to the new spiritual challenges, the diseases. Aleph and Beis, it's a foretaste, right? You learned the Sikha, yeah. The foretaste of Gula. See, what's an nafkamina? Practically. So if it's just as an answer, an inspiration, so a person can live a whole life with one Mayim. One Mayim. And that's he got the injection, and he learns it, and that fortifies him and inspires him to remain inspired and connected despite all the challenges of Golas. On the contrary, the challenges lift him. Like you learned in the Mayim Rabim, the Mayim before, this Mayim. But if that's that, but it's not the inyan of Achona to be a Mashiach, or Molla Oretz Deis Hashem, the world is filled with knowledge of God. And as Rambam describes it, that each person will learn. Kifi koyach ha'adam, v'lo ye'isa kol ilm kula ela l'das as Hashem bilvad, then you have to learn everything and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. To know the Eibishter. Because God says, I want you to know me. But upon him, here the Rebbe is saying that even if a person is very limited at this point in his life, and maybe never go beyond that, limited in how much he knows, and he knows it superficially. So who am I? Nishka Chosid, not Shaykh David Atfila. The Rebbe said, absolutely yes. He doesn't give the hezber, but the hezber is because the etzem, and the etzem kasher tevis miktzas tevis bekuloi, in one word, in one line of chassidus, is all of chassidus, all of the Eibush is there, atzmos is there. So whatever window, big or small opening, kechudesh shel machat, or kepischa shel ulam, whether it's like the opening of a needle or the opening of the ulam, whatever it is, the Eibush is there in his entirety, and your shaykhs to David is atfila. Yeah, let's conclude. Well, it's okay. Well, actually, the story will conclude tomorrow. Okay, so let's not rush it.